is a classic case on how not to do the diplomacy. Why am I telling this? Look at how the Trump dealt the issue of Russia-Ukraine war. During his campaign, Trump repeatedly asserted that he will end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. He has promised his voters that America will no longer be dragged into the endless wars at distant places. But what is he doing now? He has now taken a decision to arm Ukraine and even asked Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, can you hit Moscow if I provide you with long-range missiles? Zelenskyy enthusiastically replied, yes. So what is happening? How did Trump move from one end of the spectrum to the other? Initially, he supported Putin. He defended the Putin's decision to wage a war. He has even blamed Ukraine. So Trump even said he can appreciate the concerns of Putin when NATO expands right up to his borders. What should he do? So in fact, US voted in favor of Russia on UN resolution condemning Russia, even when the countries like India abstained. So this kind of a massive support to Russia, he called Zelenskyy a failed leader, dictator, wanted him to go away. He insulted Zelenskyy right in the White House. So he said, you have no cause, you have to agree for even the 20% land you will have to concede to Russia, which Russia has occupied. So after all this, now he says, I'll arm Ukraine to fight Russia. So what is happening to Trump? He has moved from one extreme to the other. What are the reasons for that? Why did Trump's policy on Russia fail? In fact, before coming into how Trump failed, let me also tell you that not just Trump, Biden also failed. In fact, United States miserably failed in understanding the complexity of the problem and the gravity of the issue. All its calculations have simply misfired. What were the calculations of the United States? US thought that the sanctions will make Putin to agree for a peace. This did not happen. So in fact, Biden famously said, the ruble will become rubble. The initially ruble declined sharply, but subsequently it has now in a much better, in a moderately better position than what it was in 2022 before the launch of war on Ukraine. So that did not happen. Russian economy did not collapse, though the dollar access to dollar payments has been stifled. Russian access to dollar payments was stifled. So what did happen? Then the second calculation was Putin will face an internal revolt due to economic woes. That did not happen. Putin's position has further consolidated. There are even speculations in the Western circles that Putin is facing with a life-threatening disease. Nothing happened to Putin. There was no revolt. There was no health emergency also for him. Then the third calculation was, due to American and Western sanctions, Russia will be completely isolated. Even this did not happen. India, China, and even the NATO member Turkey continue to buy Russian oil. Interestingly, recently the NATO chief threatened India, China, India, China, Brazil. He forgot to mention, or he intentionally omitted Turkey, which is the third biggest importer of Russian oil after India and China. In fact, Turkey is a member of the NATO. So therefore, Russian influence did not extinguish, did not get contained. In fact, it expanded. North Korea sent soldiers to fight side by side with Russia. Iran has sent drones. India, China, Brazil, Turkey continue to buy Russian oil. Russia, Putin has expanded his sphere of influence. So all these calculations miserably failed, even during the Biden era. Then came Trump. Trump made peace overtures to Russia. Putin was yielding it in the initial stage. He agreed for a naval ceasefire on the Black Sea. He agreed to stop the attacks on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. There were even talks at Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, even after Ukraine attacked deep inside Russia using the Sikh clandestine operation with drones, Russia still participated in the Istanbul talks. But what really happened? Where did Trump falter? Where did America fail? Why did Russia renewed its campaign of war against Ukraine? So the change came when US attacked Iran. If you closely observe Russia's war posturing or war acts before and after US attack on Iran, you will see a quantitative difference. Why was this difference? The reason for this was Trump's credibility as a peacemaker has been deeply shattered. Trump's credibility as a global leader has been rudely shaken by the manner in which he attacked Iran. So Trump was, US and Iran were negotiating on a nuclear deal. 5 rounds of negotiations were held under the aegis, under the auspices of women. Suddenly, just before the 6th round of negotiation, American ally Israel attacked Iran. Subsequently, Trump said, I may attack Iran, may not attack Iran, I will give 2 weeks time and all that. And within 2 days, he attacked Iran. So what should Putin think? Even when negotiations taking place, America made surprise attacks in Iran. So this eroded Russian confidence in the process of dialogue. So this eroded Russian confidence in Trump's real intentions to stop Ukraine war. So this is the first reason. Second reason why Russia hardened its position is that Trump's policies. Trump's policies have openly exposed the Ukrainian vulnerabilities. Trump not only exposed the Ukrainian vulnerabilities, he has amplified Ukrainian vulnerabilities. The way he insulted Ukrainian president in the Oval Office, the manner in which he publicly said, you have no courts, you should forget about the 20% of land Russia occupied. But how will Russia understand it? When Ukraine was clearly losing its partners like America, and the Europe alone will not suffice, Putin got a strategic advantage. At one point of time, Ukraine was occupying a part of land, Russian land in the Kursk region. The idea of Zelenskyy was to use it as a bargaining chip to regain the 20% of land lost to Russia. But Trump suddenly stopped giving arms and intelligence sharing for a week. And during that period, Putin took it as an advantage and started a massive offensive on Ukraine. And this led to Russia recapturing the 90% of the area and in the Kursk region from Ukraine. So now Ukraine has lost even that bargaining chip. So as Trump amplified the vulnerabilities of Ukraine, Putin hardened his position because he already had the strategic upper hand and a battlefield advantage. Now this has been further bolstered by the acts of Trump. Then the third aspect was, the manner in which Trump dealt with Russia. He was giving ultimatums, he was not consistent, he was talking something and acting on something. So the Putin clearly understood Trump is not interested in peace. Trump is a deal maker. Trump only wants to derive the maximum advantage from Ukrainian suffering, from the Russia-Ukraine war. Because Trump was keen on a mineral deal with Ukraine. Trump was calling for repayment of the war support given to Ukraine. So the way that Trump was behaving clearly indicated that Trump is not a peacemaker, but he is a middleman trying to exploit the situation. So obviously Putin understood the strategic character ambiguity of Trump very clearly. It is not a strategic ambiguity, it is a purposeful act to derive the maximum benefit. So how will all this eroded the credibility of Donald Trump as a peacemaker, and Putin started ordering his position. Now what should he do? So what should Trump do? He is completely repeating the same old policy. He is arming Ukraine. Can it really deter Russia? Is this the first time? America and Europe were arming Ukraine right for last 3 years, but nothing happened. So why will further arming of Ukraine deter Russia? And there is again a problem here. America and the Europe wants to support Ukraine to an extent of self-defense only. Well, Trump deliberately said, will you attack Moscow? But everybody knows that is only to exert pressure on Putin, but not a real-time operation. So therefore, Russia knows very well that the US and the Europe were not ready to come into a direct confrontation with Russia. And this was evidently clear even during the Biden's regime also. Zelenskyy repeatedly asked to declare Ukrainian skies as no-fly zone. Biden did not agree. Zelenskyy asked for the US and European soldiers. Nobody came forward. And finally, Zelenskyy asked for NATO membership. US denied it because US clearly said, we are not interested to come into a direct confrontation with Russia. This is the biggest vulnerability of Ukraine which Putin is trying to exploit. Now Trump says, I will give you Patriot missiles. How will it deter Russia? I don't really understand. Second is, he wants to intensify sanctions. There are already 20,000 sanctions on Russia. The policy of sanctions miserably failed. Nothing happened to Russia. Now he wants to impose more sanctions. The bilateral trade between United States and Russia is only 3 billion. What can sanctions do? So the third then, he said, we will impose secondary tariffs. What do you mean by secondary tariffs? Secondary tariffs are tariffs on the Russian trade partners, those who buy oil from Russia like India, China, Brazil, etc. America did not mention Turkey's name, though it's a NATO member and one of the third biggest importer of Russian oil. So will this strategy benefit? So whom are Trump punishing? Trump wants to punish an ally called India for buying oil from Russia for its own energy security. When you want to fight an enemy, will you harm an ally? So India is not an enemy to Russia, an enemy to neither Russia nor US. So Trump's policy of secondary tariffs will give more suffering not just to Russia, but also to India and China, etc. And essentially this may lead to realignment of forces also. That is precisely the reason India is trying to smoothen its relations with China. There is a talk of Russia, India, China mechanism revival. So Trump's policy miserably failed. At least by now Trump should understand. His imperial approach of ultimatums will not work with a leader like Putin, with a country like Russia. It did not work with Pakistan. It did not work with Iran. It did not work with any country. Why will it work with Russia? It did not work with North Korea. So how can it work with Russia? So you should at least realize that the sustained diplomacy, trying to convince both Russia and Ukraine to give up their ardent positions, extreme positions, and trying to find a middle ground.